Hey everyone, what you're about to see isn't really a new video. It's actually a year-old Patreon exclusive video, hence the slightly scrappier production, but more on that at the end. For now, I hope you enjoy the sneak peek at my bonus content. Netflix originals aren't very good. Mostly, that is. Every now and then you get a Squid Game, or a Tiger King, or a Stranger Things, but far more often, you get a Hoops, or a Pretty Smart. And look, this isn't some big revelation. I'm probably not the first person to tell you that a lot of Netflix's original programming and film isn't very good, particularly in recent years, and there's some really solid analyses out there from better creators than I, breaking down the many flaws of the Netflix approach. But I think I may be able to share a new perspective on this flood of media mediocrity, one you probably won't have thought about before. But before we put a new spin on Netflix's content strategy, we should probably establish a basic picture of what that strategy is. In a nutshell, it's quantity over quality.
I don't know, 5 of my friends got Netflix deals.
What?
It's a very achievable goal.
Netflix has produced some truly stellar television and cinema: Queen's Gambit, The Power of the Dog, Daredevil, Goat Jack Horseman. But the great stuff, even the good stuff, makes up maybe 5% of the overall catalogue of originals, and 5% is being generous. Maybe this is just Netflix's hit rate though. Maybe their approach is to brute force it. If you turn out 1,000 projects, a few of them are bound to be halfway decent. And Netflix has turned out well over 1,000. It isn't just width over specificity though. If it were, these originals would feel more unique, more different from one another than they do. Wisecrack has a good video breaking down this sense of homogeneity in Netflix programming, which is worth a watch if this video's piqued your interest, and that includes an interesting figure. Apparently Netflix greenlights projects based on 70% human analysis and 30% algorithmic analysis. That is, Netflix doesn't just throw a lot of different stuff at the wall to see what sticks, they largely only choose stuff to throw which their analysis robots predict will feel familiar enough to current user preferences. And that's because Netflix is a corporation. They care about money above all, and to get that money they care about watch time. Especially in an era where any consumer could be streaming on any one of a whole bunch of alternate platforms instead. Netflix has the subscriber pool they built that when they were the only game in town. At the moment, their top priority is keeping you on there. A few years ago, the Netflix thesis changed from, quote, wanting to be the home of everyone's favorite show to, quote, wanting to make what the audience wants to see. There is a difference here. The platform's initial goal was to produce appealing, top-quality content to build an audience. The content they're churning out now isn't stuff an audience wants to watch, it's stuff Netflix knows they will watch. It's a subtle difference, sure, but an important one, so let's talk about that stuff. The stuff they're making based on algorithmic analysis, the stuff made in order to feel familiar, the stuff that's designed not to capture attention but to maintain attention and prolong consumption. The first point to make is that, due to the sheer size of Netflix's catalogue, any conclusions I could draw in this video are going to be somewhat reductive. Maybe if this video were, say, 6 hours long, and I'd spent thousands of hours binge-watching all manner of certified rotten Netflix shows, I'd be able to get somewhere close to an appropriate level of nuance, but as I'm sure you can tell by the way I'm releasing August's exclusive at the 11th hour, there just isn't the time in my schedule or my life at present for undertakings so large. So I am not claiming that any of the following observations ring true across the board. There's far too much content, made by countless creatives in countless styles, for any of this to be truly, totally accurate. That being said, when you look broadly across this body of work, trends start to emerge. There's always outliers in terms of form, quality, or anything else, but by and large, aside from high-profile collaborations with this auteur or that, Netflix's originals are content being genre pieces. Be it documentary, romance, horror, or anything else, they sit pretty firmly within the established, expected boundaries of a given form or style, and often they revel in uncritically embracing the tropes of these categories. I watched The Grey Man not long ago, and that's the perfect example of this. Sure, it lampshades the action movie trope of throwing loaded guns.
You gave me an empty gun?
The shells were coming, okay?
Huh?
The shells were coming. You ran away too fast.
Then you need to say, hey, wait, that's empty.
But that's a pretty weird choice, since the rest of the film is built entirely on tropes. It's trope salad. And that's not always a problem. A film or show can embrace genre, embrace tropes, and utterly refuse to innovate and still be really good. Conversely, there's so many projects out there that tried to push boundaries and reject tried and true practices and fell flat utterly as a result. The other characteristic that a lot of this stuff has, though, is its disposability. We all know about Netflix's dumb model of greenlight a million shows and cancel all of them after one season unless it's an instant phenomenon. The result is a wide library, but not a deep one. Fragmentary, bite-sized, or I guess binge-sized pockets of media litter the website, with very few getting to tell continuing stories that keep you invested. On top of that, consider the stylistic homogeneity we mentioned up top, and the way so many of these are designed for passive, background viewing, and it becomes clear that producing media that stays with you, stuff you'll remember in 5 years' time, isn't really one of Netflix's priorities. The issue some people have here, and it's definitely a valid criticism, is that with Netflix and other similarly minded streaming services coming to dominate increasingly the media landscape at the expense of traditional networks and studios, this algorithmically selected, less original, audience retention-based content could lead to a bit of a cinematic and televisual dark age. That may well be true, but ever the optimist, I think we can also look at this glut of disposable, mass-produced genre content as something else, as a form of pulp fiction. No, not the Tarantino film. I'm talking about the stuff which inspired that film and its title. In the most specific sense, and I'm just using the definition from dictionary.com here because it's accurate, pulp fiction refers to a genre of racy, action-based stories published in cheaply printed magazines from around 1900 to the 1950s, mostly in the United States. Pulp fiction gets its name from the paper it was printed on. Magazines featuring such stories were typically published using cheap, ragged-edged paper made from wood pulp. Similarly to a lot of these Netflix projects, Pulp Fiction embraced genre conventions. It was often shamelessly formulaic, but mostly the objective wasn't to write the next great American novel or anything so self-serious. It was just to produce stuff that entertained people, and lots of it. Pulp Fiction was cheap and fast to pump out, and as such, someone who liked Pulp Fiction would always have more to consume. Hopefully you're beginning to see the link I'm trying to make here. Kissing Booth, Pulp Romance. Pretty Smart, Pulp Sitcom. Adam Project, Pulp Sci-Fi. In some ways, the general pulp fiction spirit actually predates this 20th century phenomenon, the thing we actually call pulp fiction, by quite a while. So to see the pre-pulp fiction roots of pulp fiction, let's look at Pulp Fiction. I swear to God I'm gonna stop saying Pulp Fiction soon. No, but it's been noted quite often that Tarantino's film isn't merely riffing on the pulp of the 20th century. It's also got something of an Arthurian fixation.
Today's episode is... But that can't be true.
I've chucked some stuff in the description if you want to look more into this layer of Tarantino's film because it's a fascinating topic to explore, but the way Pulp Fiction seems to evoke these medieval tales of chivalry is significant for us here because medieval English poetry, romance poetry specifically, is in some ways the original Pulp Fiction. Regarding that genre I mentioned, romance, I'll just throw it back to previous pillar of garbage for a quick definition. I'll just note here that when we're talking about romance in the medieval sense, it doesn't necessarily refer to the sort of love stories we'd call romance today. This usage of the word comes from the Latin-derived Romance languages these adventure stories were written in, such as French or Occitan. And while we'll be discussing an English example of the genre today, and English isn't technically a Romance language, we'd still do well to remember that romance means something very different in this context. Thanks, me from the past. Anyway, in recent years, some medievalists such as Nicola MacDonald have begun to read these romance poems as essentially medieval pulp fictions. Lucia Doležalová writes, several components of the usual definition of the pulp fiction, for example dependence on formula, or other frequently cited aspects such as the lack of originality, variation rather than innovation, mechanical composition, the use of cliches and language patterns, are easily applicable here, and its stereotypical or boilerplate character is partially the reason why most medieval literature was considered lowbrow in the early modern period. The specifics of this link are a topic for another day, but the point I'm trying to make here is that a lot of the criticisms, valid criticisms criticisms many have regarding this glut of Netflix programming also apply to Pulp Fiction, and even other forms of fiction dating back hundreds of years. From a certain perspective then, Netflix's trashy catalogue of originals is merely the latest chapter in a pretty ancient cultural lineage. But why does this matter? How could this affect the way we view Netflix and its productions? Well, that's the fun part. If these nothing shows and films do fill a similar role to that filled by romance poems in the Middle Ages, that means we can approach them in the same way some medievalists approach romance. That is, as a space in which the assumptions and values of a culture are expressed, where the subconsciousness of a society is uniquely visible. Because if these are works being produced purely for enjoyment, if they're generally aware that they're not going to be read as seriously as more prestigious forms of fiction, then generally, we're going to see fewer critical engagements and challenges in these texts to the way things are, to the values we're expected to have. It's easier to see through them into the culture which produced them. For instance, going back to those medieval pulp fictions, Alcuin Blamires uses the romance poem Sagautha to briefly explore the ways that demonic characters in the medieval imaginary might have, perhaps subconsciously, functioned as representations of repressed thoughts and desires. Sheila Delaney reads the poem Amis and Amalune as an exploration of norms and expectations around same-sex unions. Per Nicola MacDonald, popular romance is a space, narrative as well as imaginary, in which cultural norms and divergences from those norms are negotiated and articulated. What's stopping us from conceptualizing Netflix originals in the same way? From coming at a text like Paradise PD and hoping not to be entertained, but to see through the show, to something resembling the default assumptions that Middle America had towards police, policing, and small-town life during the 2010s. Or from reading the geopolitics of the Grey Man as an unconscious reflection of the growing tensions felt between the US and her overseas allies. Nothing, really. Anyway, that's one way to look at Netflix and trash TV more widely. And call me biased, but I think it's a more relevant way than some which have been suggested. That Wisecrack video I mentioned earlier lands on a conception of Netflix original content as postmodern pastiche, but I don't think that shoe really fits. Usage of the term varies, but pastiche tends to connote an awareness of its own cultural recycling, an awareness we don't often see in the Netflix catalogue. In conclusion then, maybe Netflix's philosophy, maybe their content production model is bad, but that badness might be a part of a way older cultural lineage, one which furnishes us with the critical tools to get something more out of all this trash TV. And maybe that isn't good or bad. Maybe it just is. Thanks for watching. Sorry this is... Sometimes I see way smaller channels than mine with way meatier Patreons, and I get a bit confused, what are they doing right that I'm not? But then I realized, for one, I've never actually gone through my whole Patreon system in a video, just like community posts and so on. So if you enjoyed my exhuming of that bonus video, maybe stick around for a few extra minutes and give me a chance to break it down. What does supporting this channel get you, besides a sense of pride and accomplishment? First, obvious one, but you get thanked at the end of all my videos. You also get Discord flares and access to a patron-only discussion channel in the Pillar of Garbage server. Next, yeah, Patreon exclusive videos like that one. There's currently 12 more of these available, and they're a mix of stuff like this, interesting topics that I feel wouldn't do so well on YouTube, along with just more of what you guys like. Next, you get voting power on the topics for the bi-monthly Patreon community videos I do. Patreon supporters also gain access to Patreon endnotes, brief mini-essays I'll sometimes release alongside main channel videos, being mainly tangents, clarifications, and discussions of minor related points. For instance, there's a Glass Onion endnote about the significance of character names, and there's a Multiverse of Madness endnote examining the film's adaptation of the Utopian Parallel. Very occasionally, I might also post longer read-only essays on the Patreon on matters relating to the channel. There's only one of these at the moment, discussing ethics and sponsored videos, but more will likely follow at some point. Supporting me on Patreon also lets you view my upcoming video schedule, as well as all the plans I'm hoping to get to one day. Maybe it's been a while since the last upload and you're wondering what I'm working on, maybe you want to see distant future content possibilities. Either way, that itch can be scratched via Patreon. But here's the fun part. All of the above is available to every patron. Every one of the rewards I've told you about so far, those are just the rewards for the £2 tier. I'd do the whole, that's just the price of a cup of coffee every month bit, but these days it isn't, it's cheaper, 'cause he lives and all that. So what about the higher tiers? Well, remember I mentioned the power to vote on community video topics? I don't create the options for that, you do. Or you will if you join on the next tier up. Every one of these pillar of garbage videos you're seeing now was based on a suggestion from a Patreon backer, suggestions which can be about anything. And any idea that doesn't win right away gets added to a pool of backup ideas to be repolled in the future. Next tier up, you get to access, download, and reuse the original soundtracks I've made for my videos. To be perfectly clear, the majority of the tracks you hear in my videos aren't these. They're from the YouTube audio library, but you know, some are. Like these ones, for instance. So the £6 tier lets you download these for reuse in your own projects. And in the top tier, you get all the above, plus spoken rather than written thanks at the end of the videos. It's tricky doing this YouTube thing, and in some ways, it's getting trickier. I won't get into that here. I'll just say, I'm not here to make a quick bag, I'm just trying to make a living. And I'm really hoping that one day I'll be able to do this without having to rely on a video doing freakishly well every month. If you want to help me out there while getting some, let's face it, pretty neat perks, links down below. To end then, I'd of course like to thank my patrons, all the current ones, and everyone who's supported me in the past. It really does make a difference. At the end of last year, I moved into my current flat, and because people like me don't look good on paper, the only way I could get the flat was by paying a few months up front, completely clearing out my bank balance in the process. But I'd built up a couple £100 that year in my Patreon wallet, so for the first time I cashed out, and that saw me through until the next AdSense payment came. It was a lifesaver, it made all the difference. So what we're going to do to close things out here is thank by name everyone who's ever made a pledge. See you all next time, sorry about any mispronunciations, and big thanks to A Quiet Guy, A Knight Errant, Adam Mandic, Adam Myers, who streams and also just put out a pretty interesting long-form essay on masculinity in the MCU, check it out, Ashanti Mills, Azdak, Benjamin Herson, Boom, Butterfire, Carl Brown, Carlos Teal, Chadwick Vandarius, Daniel Bean, Daniel Goldhorn, another creator you should definitely check out, some great videos on his channel, Dominic Ainsley, Dozy Bitch, Ein, who really wants a Pimtron video, Elizabeth Saltmarsh, Entry Level, Eric Holtrop, Found Atlantis, Gabriel, Gareth Winchester, Heather Long, Henry, Human Happening, Ian Fifield, Jade Sojourn, James Huffstutler, James Joy, Jamie Midge, Jason St. Auburn, Jay Harris, Joey Delgado, John A. McKeown III, Jonathan Francis Bond, Jonathan Singh, Jonathan Thorne, Joseph Johnson, Josh Brennan, Julish, Karen Kuhlman, Kevin Douglas, who makes music, check him out. Kiara, King Flump, Laughing Rainbow, Lookin' Miffery, Lord Boo, Luan Nico, Magpie, Marcus Bengson, Marianne Darrow, Martin J. Lollar, Max Friedersdorf, Mechanist Gamma, give him a sub if you're into Sonic, some great stuff over there, Meredith, Mike Walsh, Mist, Neil Alexander Donovan, Niles Christensen, Nothings, Patrick Kinch-Sular, Paul Wilson, Pete Weinstein, Peter Arlinger, Polarai, Raikura Kuzami, Remy, Ryan Emily, Sana HE, Seth Goldstein, Sunny Bits, Stanley Lamb, Super Maple Syrup, Thomas R, Thrawn7, Tig Black, Tim Rajewski, _Zeus, Victoria Dokova, Weirdy Beardy, Yves Lafrance, Zach Y, and Alexander Krotnich.